So this is a story containing several firsts. The first time I ever went on tour with the Wellesley College choir, the first time I ever visited Quebec, and the first time I ever smuggled something across an international border. So last year my birthday fell on the Wednesday before spring break, and all day my parents had been calling me with these weird cryptic messages like, "Have you gotten any weird phone calls yet?" And I'm like, "No, what the heck are you talking about?" But as it turned out, they had ordered me a cake from Claflin Bakery, and I should have been expecting a call summoning me to come pick it up. And of course, the next day I got an email telling me to come get my cake from the Emporium. So I did, and I showed up, and the person working there that day knew exactly what I was talking about, and she gave me a receipt, which I signed, and then she gave me this cake box. And it was huge. It was like 16 by 16 by 16 inches, and the cake inside was accordingly enormous. It was this huge chocolate cylinder, and it had white frosting with red letters that said "Happy Birthday, Emma." And I promptly took it back to Tower, and my roommate and I each had a slice, and we agreed that it was delicious. So you can imagine I'm in kind of a dilemma, because this was now Thursday. The choir was leaving on Saturday at 6:45 a.m. So I thought to myself, well, I don't want to leave the cake here and have it be nasty when I get back, and I don't want to eat it all at once, as much as I love cake. So I took it to choir rehearsal, thinking, yeah, it's cake, everybody's going to love this. What's not to like? I stick it under my seat, and at the end of the rehearsal, I take it out, and I basically say, hey, it's my birthday, let us eat cake. The cake doesn't get eaten. So, and in retrospect, I can imagine why this was. It's right before spring break, it's midterm season, it's a pub night, nobody wants to hang around and eat cake. So I told myself what I tell myself every time I have any kind of assignment that I actually have to turn in, and I say, I've got time. So, and I was still telling myself this at 9 o'clock on Friday night. So when I went to bed at 3, I told myself, okay, well, you're just going to have to take the cake with you. So the next morning, 3 hours later, I get up and I shuffle, to Davis Plaza with my suitcase and my backpack and my cake box. I stow my luggage and I put the box in the little overhead compartment in the bus, and I sit down in my seat and I slump over on my backpack and I completely forget about everything, and I'm out for the next 4 hours. There were 3 stops on our trip to Montreal. There was a rest stop, there was a lunch break in Vermont, and there was the border crossing. And the cake didn't get eaten at the rest stop, it didn't get eaten at lunch, and I was getting back on the bus after lunch thinking to myself, well, gee, our next stop is the border. And I want to make something clear. It's really not likely they would have taken away my cake. It's a baked good, it's not like there's any fresh fruits or vegetables or controlled substances or live animals hidden in this cake. They're not going to take away my cake. But at the time, I was pretty sleep deprived, and I was kind of tired, and I didn't know what the rules were, and I was kind of freaked out about it. I was a little nervous. I was thinking, well, this is going to be really weird if they go on this bus and find this random cake. So we pull up at the border stop at 1:30, and I get out, and I've got my passport. And I shuffle with everybody else into this little building where they have us go through metal detectors like at the airport, except way less stressful. And we go up to these little booths and where, customs officials are. And I walk up to my custom official and I greet her with this, bonjour, because it's French Canada. And she kind of looks at me and gives me this grumpy bonjour and takes my passport. She looks at my face. She looks at the passport. She looks at my face again. She stamps it, she hands it to me, and she waves me on. Like nothing. That was it. So I got back on the bus, and my cake was still in the overhead compartment. The cake traveled to Montreal, and some of it got eaten when we checked into the hotel by hungry choir bees. And I stowed it in the little kitchenette and went off and had adventures with the choir. We sang at some concerts, we sang at a Catholic service, we drank green beer on St. Patrick's Day, because we were there for that. And on our last day in Montreal, when we were going to leave for our next destination, I walked out of the hotel with my backpack, my suitcase, and my cake. The cake ultimately made it to Quebec City, which is quite a ways farther north than Montreal. And considering that it had traveled over 500 miles by this time, it wasn't too bad. It was still pretty tasty. It was a little squished, it was a little dry, it was partially eaten by the choir, but it was still certainly edible and not that bad. So on the second to last night of tour, in my PJs in the hotel room with a cup of tea, I ate the last slice. And that was my debut as an international pastry smuggler.